I'd like to do for the next few minutes is share with you some stories about two people that have helped shape my understanding of innovation. Two ordinary people that have sort of forced me to rethink what innovation really should be. And I need my clicker. And those two people are a housewife from Chestnut Hill, Massachusetts, and a farmer in Arusha, Tanzania. And before I tell you these stories, what I'd like to do is tell you what my definition of innovation was earlier in my career. And it's a pretty traditional definition for innovation, something that's new and novel, that creates value for some group of people, at a certain point in time. And I used models like this to describe the various kinds of innovation. And in this case, it's a 2x2 matrix. The x-axis is degree of newness to the organization, and the y-axis is degree of newness to the market. And using tools like this, we can plot various innovations and determine whether they're radical or semi-radical or incremental. And it occurs to me that the way that we talk about innovation, these kinds of definitions or these kinds of models, are really about the benefit that's brought to the organizations who innovate. And recently, I did a Wordle on 3 definitions for radical innovation. And you can see the words that pop out. Features, cost, product, quality, service, performance, radical, process. They're all words that are related to the organization that's doing the innovations. So this is the way I used to think about innovation before these two people came into my life. So let's talk about the housewife in Chestnut Hill, Massachusetts. A few years ago, Procter & Gamble asked Continuum, my company, to come up with an innovative way to clean a floor. And we did what we always do, we used a human-centered approach to try and understand the values and aspirations and desires of people, in this case, around the cleanliness of their home. And that's how we got to meet this housewife in Chestnut Hill, Massachusetts. We went to visit her. And we went to visit her because she's an extreme user. And by that I mean she vacuums her entire house twice a day. Yeah, extreme user. And while we were there, she was telling us how much she loves her vacuum cleaner. You can see it in the picture there. She never puts it away. And she was raving about her vacuum cleaner. But what became apparent in spending time with her was not so much her vacuum cleaner, but the cleanliness of her house was an expression of her, was a representation of her as a person. That was what was important. Not that the house was clean, the fact that it was clean at all times in case somebody stopped in and came into her house, that they would have a good impression of her. We studied other people too who cleaned their floors, and this women, of course, mostly. And we discovered some really interesting things. One of them was that at that time, people spent as much time cleaning the cleaning tools as they did cleaning the floor. And why is that? It's because if you make something really good at picking up dirt, it's really hard to get the dirt out of it, right? So we're talking about paradoxes in our immersion today. There's a great paradox for you. And all of this ultimately led to an opportunity for innovation that we stated as a mop with a single-use disposable sponge that ultimately became the Swiffer product for Procter & Gamble. How many people here use a Swiffer? How many people here love your Swiffer? What do you love about your Swiffer? You want to yell something out? It's easy. What else? It works. It's fun. You can probably get your kids to clean the floor for you, right? So it's true that the Swiffer is, from a performance perspective, a superior product than other cleaning tools that were available at the time. But I believe the success of the Swiffer is ultimately about how it made the people like that housewife in Chestnut Hill feel about themselves and their home. It was about the effect that the innovation had on the people. Now, by any definition or model of innovation, Swiffer is in fact a radical innovation. It was a new technology, it was patented, it had never been produced by any firm before. It created an entire new category. It was discontinuous innovation in the sense that it obsoleted a whole bunch of things that were already existing. But I think the key is the effect that it had on people like that housewife. Now I'm going to stop my stories here and tell you about a trip that I made a few years ago to South Africa, and I was working with a group of people on the issues of water and sanitation in rural villages in South Africa. And we visited this village here called Garasi, where about 2 years previous, a foreign NGO had come into the village and installed a water treatment and distribution system for the villagers. But it had extreme unintended consequences. It actually tore the fabric of the community apart. Because it was the first time in that village where people had to pay for water, and it took 3 people to run the system. So 3 of the villagers were going to be employed. And the other people in the villagers, didn't want to pay money if they weren't the ones who were going to be one of the 3 people employed. So this whole system had been in place for 2 years. Nobody had used it. Nobody had used it. And it made me stop. It stopped me. It struck me how we sort of automatically default to applying a technology, right, without considering the human aspects of this. The people in the village told me that if that NGO had asked them, they would have told the NGO that they would have preferred to have a school. They would have traded safe water for education for their children because they believed that the future for their children was in education. But nobody asked them. So it made me think, are we applying technologies? Are we just running around applying technologies? And I'm sure the people at that NGO felt really good about what they did, right? But the effect that it had in the community was quite disastrous. So it stopped me. It's like, are we thinking about innovation in the right way? Are we thinking about technology in the right way? So now I'll take you back to our stories. So this is the farmer in Arusha, Tanzania, and I visited him about 2 years ago. And I visited him because he'd bought one of these pumps. You can see there's a blue pump there. And he'd had that pump for a couple of years. And that pump is made and distributed and sold by a nonprofit called Kickstart. Has anybody heard of Kickstart? Yeah? Yeah. Kickstart was started by 2 gentlemen, Martin Fisher and his partner, Nick Moon. And they were Stanford engineering grads who, after they finished school, went to Africa and worked for aid agencies. And they did that for a few years, and Martin realized that in a lot of cases, in almost all cases, these aid agencies would go into villages like Garasi, provide some tools or some infrastructure, and then leave. And then Martin would go back a few months later, and it would not be used. And he realized this was a great waste, and that there had to be a better way. So they formed Kickstart. And Kickstart sells a lot of products, but the one that we were interested in is this one here. It's called the Moneymaker Pump. And subsistence farmers will save money for up to 2 years to buy this pump, which costs around $100. And then this pump allows them to pump water either out of a well or a water source near their land and grow crops in the dry season when nobody else can grow crops. And so they become market farmers instead of subsistence farmers. And this gentleman that I met, the effect that this Moneymaker Pump had on him and his family was quite profound. So he went from subsistence farming to now market farming. He was able to put both his kids in private school. He built a new house. And he's now got a business in aquaculture. He's raising fish. All because of the Moneymaker Pump. He actually paid back the pump, the earnings that he made in the first 3 months more than paid for the pump. And not only does the Moneymaker Pump have impact on this man's life, but many people's lives. And I've seen some figures a while ago that said the Moneymaker Pumps, actually earnings from the Moneymaker Pump in Kenya represented more than 1% of the GDP of Kenya, which is quite amazing. So if we look at these two things, think about the Swiffer and how it made that housewife's life a little bit better. And if we think about the moneymaker pump, the impact that it's had on this farmer and other farmers' lives is quite profound. And so I was struggling with how can we redefine innovation, not in terms of the benefit that it brings to the organizations that innovate, but to the effect that it has on the people that use the innovation. And so this is one way I think we can think about it. On a model like this, we might on the x-axis have degree of how much somebody's life is improved with the innovation. And the y-axis might be something like how much this innovation has increased the meaning in someone's lives. And I really believe that if we think about innovation in this way, we will aspire to do great things, and we will have benefit for the organizations that we're working with. So, all right. If we plot the Swiffer on this, it's there, right? Makes it a little easier, cleaning a little easier, makes you feel a little better, a little better about the cleanliness of your house and maybe you. It's there. But the moneymaker pump rates up there really high. Now, the interesting thing about the moneymaker pump is no new innovation. Human-powered treadle water pumps have been around for centuries. No new business model. No new distribution model. It has none of the characteristics that we usually think about innovation, but I think it's a radical innovation. And by defining radical innovation in this way, it is. So, in conclusion, the way that I'm now defining innovation and the way that I think we should think about innovation to aspire us to do those great things is the implementation of an idea that improves someone's life and brings meaning to their life. Thank you.